Coming up on this edition of Reel to Reel.
I'm Steve Kiltonick. While the cornerstone to this church is dated 1941, the roots of this Palmer parish go all the way back to the days of the Civil War. Coming up, I'll have the story of this church once dubbed the gem of the diocese.
I'm Terry Hegarty. I'll provide local reaction to the Synod on the Family that is just wrapping up in Rome.
And Carolee McGrath tells us about how this special prayer to the Blessed Mother began. These stories and more are just ahead on this edition of Reel to Reel from St. Thomas the Apostle Parish in Palmer.
From throughout Western New England and beyond, this is Reel to Reel, your window on the world around you. Here is your Reel to Reel host, Sharon Roulier.
Hello and welcome to Reel from St. Thomas the Apostle Church in Palmer. This parish, founded during the Civil War, is marking its 150th anniversary this year. Steve Kiltonick will have much more on the history of St. Thomas coming up in just a bit. But first, this past week saw the close of the 2-week-long Synod on the Family in Rome. The gathering, which hosted more than 150 bishops from around the world, discussed a range of pastoral challenges faced by families today and generated lots of media attention over the openness of the discussions. Terry Hegarty now has a recap, including local reaction.
Servono per coltivare.
A synod of bishops is called by the Pope whenever he wants to address a topic that is pertinent to the Church. This 2014 synod, running from October 5th through the 19th, has addressed many issues faced by families in the world today and has stressed the importance of married couples and the family in society. Bishop Rosansky says that Pope Francis is using the synod as just one more way of listening to the members of the Church worldwide.
Pope Francis, from the beginning of his pontificate, has really set a tone that both bishops' conferences and synods, as we have now going on in Rome, will be an important part of the way in which he leads the universal church.
Topics addressed at the gatherings included contraception, sexual and medical ethics, and the plight of families displaced by war and violence. Additionally, the Synod called for greater acceptance and appreciation of divorced and remarried Catholics, cohabitating couples, and homosexuals. Mary Conroy, who worked with her husband Deacon Jim Conroy in family ministry for years in the diocese, says she's glad to see that family ministry is the focus of the Synod.
Well, I'm really happy to see that the Vatican has chosen to use this as a topic for a Synod, because it's to have the attention put back on the family and marriage at this particular time in history is crucial.
Mary feels that parishes in general must be more open to people who are seeking a deeper spiritual life.
It's hard for families these days, both economically, socially. They're not supported through television or social media. People still want to get married, but it's very difficult for them, and there's a lot of brokenness in marriage. So people are hurting, and they are in need of spiritual and pastoral care.
Pope Francis has been actively involved in the 2-week-long gathering. He expressed his thoughts on the issues, but perhaps more importantly, he encouraged participants to be open to the influence of the Holy Spirit and to not hesitate in expressing their thoughts.
My impression of the Synod is that the conversation has been very open, it's been very frank, and that has all been encouraged by Pope Francis. And to me as a bishop, and I think to priests, to deacons, to all of the religious, especially those engaged in parish pastoral ministry, this Synod is really a source of encouragement to us.
Recommendations from these recent sessions will be reviewed and further discussed a great deal before formal recommendations are made to Pope Francis. But the actions of those gathered in Rome will set the table for what's to be implemented at the parish level. Bishop Rosansky says it will take some time for any changes to be evident to the faithful, but he says that the willingness to address some very controversial issues says a lot about the pontiff.
Pope Francis is a man who realizes the importance of communication, who knows the importance of a frank discussion, and who is not afraid of it, is not afraid to hear what is being said. So I think on all of the controversial topics that are brought up within the Synod, he wants to hear this because he knows that this touches the lives of people every day, and that these issues are very important, and that people struggle with the different issues that are being discussed.
We in the Catholic Church, we need to deal with people where they're at, not where they might be or where we'd like them to be. We want to deal with them where they are and bring them into the fullness of the Church.
Mary believes that these discussions and recommendations are vital to people all around the world.
The support of the family cannot be underestimated. We need family. We search for family. If we don't have it in our own family, people go out looking for it elsewhere, sometimes in the wrong places, maybe sometimes in gangs or maybe their circle of friends, but you always come back to family. Family is the foundation of our whole society and of the Church, and we need to support it.
This synod has supported a more open discussion of some of the challenges faced by families today. How those discussions will translate into a change in the pastoral life of the Church will likely not be seen for some time to come. Reporting for Reel to Reel, this is Terry Hegarty.
And no doubt there will be much more on these topics leading up to the larger gathering in 1 year's time. And you can stay informed on this ongoing discussion through reports found on our website at iobserve.org. And still to come on Reel to Reel, celebrating the beginning of the Rosary. And Steve Kiltonic will take a look at the 150th anniversary of this Palmer Parish. These stories and more are still to come on this edition of Reel to Reel.
The Chalice of Salvation, your weekly spiritual connection. I'm Passionist Brother Terrence Scanlon, your Chalice host, inviting you to join us Sunday at 10. This week we welcome Father Donald Point, Director of the Society for the Propagation of the Faith. The Chalice of Salvation, your spiritual connection, Sunday morning at 10, right here on 22 News.
Smartboards, iPads, computer technology, care of creation, the arts, faith development, sports and fitness, community service. These are your Catholic schools for the 21st century, constantly raising the standards to provide a quality education to their students. Ever changing and adapting, but constant in their values to provide caring and nurturing communities with Christ at the center. Come see today's Catholic schools, where students learn about science and matter, and where they also learn about what really matters. Log on to iobserve.org to find a link to a Catholic school in your area, or call 413-452-0850.
I'm Dan Dumas with your Reel to Reel News Brief. With Election Day now just 2 weeks away, the Catholic bishops of Massachusetts have issued another statement, this time in support of ballot question 4. Under the provisions of the ballot initiative, workers in Massachusetts would have the opportunity to earn up to 40 hours of sick time each year. In their statement, they said the social teaching of the Catholic Church has long been clear on the essential nature of work for the maintenance of the dignity of the human person. It is this teaching that informs our opinion and endorsement of question 4 today. The bishops have also spoken out in support of question 3, which would repeal casino legalization in Massachusetts. And you can read these statements online at iobserve.org. In other news, the initial sessions of the Synod on the Family will conclude this weekend with the beatification of Pope Paul VI tomorrow. More on this legendary church leader from Catholic News Service.
I'm very happy that this extraordinary synod will conclude with the beatification of Pope Paul VI. You know, the one who instituted the Synod of Bishops and who, in a way, saved the synodal process, the collegial process, you know, by being true to the doctrine and also opening it, you know, opening it to, some people might call it compromise, but compromise is not always bad. You know, compromise sometimes allows those who have difficulties to receive the doctrine.
The Synod process really started, over a year and a half ago when the Universal Church was asked these questions, which then formed this working document that we're now processing here over the 2-week period. And to end this part of the process with Paul VI, I think it addresses one of the components that was in there, was in the working document, which was he not only talked about responsible parenthood and the lifestyle and rhythm of male and femaleness, but he also gave a lot of predictions at the end of that document. Predictions like that, that by using artificial means, that ultimately there would be a degradation of families, that there would be an increase in divorce, that there would be
fewer children, children as burden, all of those predictions that he made. And yeah, they've come true, haven't they? So yeah, all I can expect is with the grace of his beatification and the fact that the Synod Fathers are handling this whole conversation around the openness to life, imagine what we're going to be able to do. Imagine, by the grace of God, the mercy of God, I'm hoping we're going to be taking this 180 around and sharing some beautiful messages with people.
In other news, congratulations to Providence Place in Holyoke, which has received notification that it is the recipient of My Interview's Excellence in Action Award from the National Research Corporation. This honor recognizes senior living communities achieving the highest levels of resident satisfaction. Finally, Bishop Mitchell Rosansky took part in Pulaski Day events in East Hampton last weekend. David Martin reports.
Residents of East Hampton and those proud of their Polish heritage gathered to honor Revolutionary War hero Kazimierz Pulaski in the town's Pulaski Park. General Pulaski arrived in the United States from Poland in 1777 and immediately joined the fight for independence here. Springfield Bishop Mitchell Rosansky gave a blessing praising Kazimierz Pulaski as a great example of Polish ancestors who braved the journey to America and inspired others in their causes of righteousness and truth.
To realize that there were Polish immigrants here even from the beginning of our country helps us to take pride in all that has been accomplished here by Polonia in the United States.
The event was sponsored by the Pulaski Club of East Hampton. East Hampton Mayor Karen Kadger, who is of Polish heritage, and a parishioner at Our Lady of the Valley Church in East Hampton, officially declared it Pulaski Day in town.
You really don't see very many Polish celebrations, so it's very special, and it's in honor of, my dad's long passed away, so I'm very proud to be able to be here with my congregation in this city and celebrate my heritage.
State Senator Don Hummidson said the event was a great opportunity to meet Bishop Rosansky.
Obviously his chance to introduce himself more on a one-on-one basis to all of us. But what a great man and a great honor it is to be with him and to listen to him and to get the chance to know him on a personal level.
Bishop Rosansky was touched when being invited to this event upon arriving in the Springfield Diocese, because he knew he was among people of Polish heritage here. He said Kazimierz Pulaski is such a great hero that there are memorials to him all over the country, including in the bishop's hometown of Baltimore. In East Hampton, I'm David Martin.
And remember to stay informed on all the happenings. You can log on to our news and information website, iobserve.org. There you'll find up-to-the-minute and accurate news in the Catholic Church, both here in the Diocese of Springfield and beyond. That's our news and information website, iobserve.org. I'm Dan Dumas, and that's your Reel to Reel News Brief.
This month marks the 800th anniversary of the gift of the Rosary to the Catholic Church. Hundreds gathered at Our Lady of Czestochowa Church in Turners Falls earlier this month for a special service honoring the Blessed Mother and her gift to the Catholic Church. Carolee McGrath has our story.
Hundreds of parishioners from Our Lady of Czestochowa Church in Turners Falls gathered on a recent Sunday afternoon to pray the Rosary. It's a prayer Catholics no doubt have taken for granted over the years. Many others who are not Catholic assume the Rosary is a way to worship Mary, the Mother of God, which is not the case. But those gathered here understand the Rosary for what it is, a powerful devotion to our Blessed Mother, and a special way to ask her to lead us to her Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ.
We're not worshiping her. We are putting ourselves under her care and protection, and she helps us in our prayers. She prays for us, she prays with us, and we are her children. She is our mother, and she takes us to Jesus.
Joanne Dowdy is a member of the Rosary Society at the Turners Falls Parish, which hosted the special Rosary and Benediction service of Thanksgiving to mark the 800th anniversary.
This is a big event, and a lot of what we want to do is promote the Rosary in the Rosary Society. The Rosary Society prays for the Church and prays the Rosary every day for the Church. And I think that the anniversary of the Rosary is a real celebration of this gift that we have from Our Lady, to have her intercede on our behalf in so many ways.
The Holy Rosary as we know it dates back to 1214. That's when the Blessed Mother appeared to St. Dominic in France. She gave him the Rosary as a way to convert the Albigensians and others at the time. Father Charles Di Mescola is the pastor of Our Lady of Czestochowa Parish.
The Rosary is a tool for meditation on the life of Jesus. And so as you pray the Rosary, you develop an intimate relationship with Jesus. So Mary is actually leading us to Jesus.
Given all that's going on in the Middle East and the vicious terror attacks and the fear of more terror attacks, people here say Catholics everywhere need to be praying the Rosary, going to the Blessed Mother, who is our mother, and asking for her protection and asking her to lead everyone to her Son Jesus. Father Gary Daly, the Director of Vocations for the Diocese of Springfield, preached during the service.
The Rosary has been a powerful prayer for hundreds of years, and Pope Francis right now is really called on Catholics throughout the world to pray the Rosary fervently for not only the conversion of souls, but for the end of terrorism and for all that's happening throughout the world, and the awful situation that occurs now with Christians being murdered and beheaded.
Father Gary also gave the example of how the Rosary was used during the Battle of Lepanto on October 7, 1571, when the naval forces of the Ottoman Turks outnumbered the Christian European Holy League off of western Greece.
If the Holy League lost, the Turks would have dominion over the Mediterranean, and they would sail onwards in their conquest of Europe. The future of Christianity in the Western world was at risk.
Father Gary explained how the Christian soldiers prayed the Rosary and were victorious in that battle. The feast of Our Lady of the Rosary is celebrated on October 7th.
The prayer of the Rosary, in the Battle of Lepanto was very powerful, and that same power exists today. It may be 400 plus years later, but the power of the Rosary is still there, and I think that we really have to use the Rosary in that way to really pray for peace in the world.
Many of those who attended the late afternoon service had young children in tow. Eugenia Doucette is a mother of 8.
Our Lady came to 3 children in Portugal back in 1917, and back then World War I was happening. She said that we'd pray the Rosary for world peace. And you know, with the turmoil going on today in the world, it's more than evident we need world peace. With everything going on in Iraq, in the Middle East, and even in our own country. I mean, you know, we can see ISIS. We're just being inundated all over the place with different evils: pornography, abortion, turmoil in the family, divorce. So it's really important to pray that Rosary, because the Rosary is the weapon, the key to heaven.
And a powerful way, she says, to help us know and love Jesus. Reporting for Reel to Reel, I'm Carolee McGrath.
A sesquicentennial is truly a special event in the life of a parish. Only a handful of parishes in the diocese have each reached this historic milestone. This parish here in Palmer recently joined the ranks of that special group, also including St. Peter's in Great Barrington, which celebrated a few weeks ago as well. Steve Kiltonick has the story now of St. Thomas the Apostle.
The beginnings of St. Thomas the Apostle Parish in Palmer, like many Catholic parishes in western Massachusetts, can be found in its cemetery. Here lie the graves of the parish's founding sons and daughters, many of whom were of Irish descent. With names like O'Keefe, Ryan, Sullivan, and Fitzgerald, the Irish were the predominant group who came to the region over 150 years ago to work mainly on the railroads and in the mills. Some who emigrated to America from places like Killarney County, Kerry, came with little money but were armed with a strong faith and hopes and dreams of a better life. It is known that the poor working people in those early days carried their shoes to the threshold of the church to save their precious pair of shoes from wearing out too soon. Sadly, there were those who never lived to see their dreams fulfilled. Across from the cemetery is a centennial memorial dedicated to the establishment of the Roman Catholic faith in this region. It depicts the first Mass, which was said by Father Fitton of Hartford in 1832 in a Three Rivers home, as well as the first church, St. Anne's, which was founded in 1855, not too far from here, near the center of Palmer. Over the ensuing years, 12 other parishes and 2 mission churches sprang from St. Anne. The first, Palmer Thorndike Munson Parish, founded in 1864, is where St. Thomas the Apostle Parish marks its beginning. On October 11th, a special Mass was held to celebrate the parish's 150 years of faith and spiritual legacy. Bishop Thomas Mitchell Rosansky concelebrated the Mass with Father Eugene Plass, who has been the parish's pastor for nearly 20 years. In his homily, Bishop Rosansky praised the perseverance of those who came before, going back to when the parish was established in the midst of the Civil War.
Through these 150 years, we can just imagine the struggles through which those who have gone before us had encountered. And as we envision those struggles, we still find that solid faith that sustained them and nourished them through those times.
According to Chancery Office records, St. Thomas Parish was officially established in 1864 by the Bishop of Boston, with Father Lynch as its first pastor. In 1878, the parish's second pastor, Father Thomas Sullivan, raised the $3,500 needed to build a new church. He also chose St. Thomas, his patron, as the name of the new parish. On February 9, 1879, Springfield Bishop Patrick O'Reilly officiated at the dedication ceremony of the church, proclaiming it to be the gem of the diocese. Within 10 years, the church was renovated to accommodate the needs of the fast-growing parish, which by now included the many French Canadians and Polish. Father William Hart became St. Thomas's longest-serving pastor from 1889 until 1919. After Father Michael Carroll died unexpectedly, Father Daniel Hennessy took over the parish reins in 1934. Father Hennessy redesigned and modernized the cemetery and created a perpetual care program. But perhaps his greatest achievement was the construction of a brand new church. The church was constructed in 13th century English Gothic style. The walls were made of light-colored granite veneer from Chelmsford, Massachusetts. The exterior of the church featured 2 pinnacles and a cross of carved limestone. Interior highlights included an Italian marble altar, English oak paneling, and pews which could seat 450 people. Fluorescent lighting was installed, and at the time, St. Thomas was only the second church in the state to install this type of lighting. The magnificently detailed stained glass windows were created by Henry Lee Willett of Philadelphia. The most notable is the great front window above the choir loft, which depicts 5 important lessons in the life of St. Thomas.
Each window of the 12 that we have are each a petition of the Apostles' Creed. It's very classical. It goes way back to the medieval basilicas of Europe. And I have used them, and they were intended so that those who needed instructions in language or didn't speak or didn't read or write, that they could go to each window and take it as a lesson in what the church teaches.
In May 1941, the cornerstone of the new church was laid, and on December 14, 1941, just 7 days after the attack on Pearl Harbor, a final Mass was said in the old church, and a pontifical Mass of dedication was celebrated by Bishop Thomas O'Leary. It was at this time that Apostle was added to the name so its patron could be fully identified. David Lynch's family history in the parish goes back 6 generations when his ancestors came to Thorndyke from Kerry, Essex County, Ireland. Lynch, who was an altar boy at the 1955 Centennial Memorial dedication by Bishop Weldon, said the church was always at the center of his life.
It seemed that everything evolved around St. Thomas Parish, and that even included many of our friends who were non-Catholics. And if you look at the minstrels and all the programs that went on at St. Thomas, you can see that many of the people who were not members of this parish and were not Roman Catholics truly supported all of the things that St. Thomas was doing. I had the opportunity to meet some wonderful priests, and they played a big part in my life and the lives of a lot of my friends.
Over the next 50 years, 5 priests led the St. Thomas congregation, each putting his own distinct imprint on the parish. In the 1960s, the church interior was revamped to comply with Vatican II standards, and in 1964, the parish center was built, where many church functions are still held, such as Friday night bingo, dinners, pageants, graduations, and the CCD program are just a few. After Bishop Rosansky opened his gift of anniversary glasses, a reception was held at the center for all parishioners. Father Plass hopes that the sesquicentennial will jumpstart the parish and usher in a new evangelization era that will help bring more Catholics back into the church and retain its youth.
I think it's going to be a shot in the arm for us to help us wake up to see the heritage we've got and the faith of these people from way back, and can we find it in ourselves today and go forward and build more and call our young people to realize what we've got so that we can cherish that faith and share it.
As the parish turns the pages on a new chapter in its history, this gem of the diocese remains a pillar of the Catholic faith for all nationalities to embrace. For Reel to Reel, I'm Steve Kiltonick.
Father Plass said this isn't the end of the anniversary celebration here, which will continue into next year when a formal appreciation dinner is planned next June for all those who have helped the parish over the years. And of course, Bishop Rosansky will be back for the celebration as well. And for this week, that's Reel to Reel. I hope you enjoyed the program today. Remember, you can always find the latest news on the Catholic Church, both in Springfield and around the world, by logging onto our website at iobserve.org. Or you can also like us on our Facebook page. Please join me again next week as I begin my series of reports highlighting our Catholic Communications pilgrimage to Poland this past summer. There, joined by 40 pilgrims and our spiritual leader, Father Gary Daly, we will walk in the footsteps of St. John Paul II. It all starts next week right here on Reel to Reel, your window on the world around you. Have a great week.
Reel to Reel is a production of the Catholic Communications Corporation, funded in part by the annual Catholic Appeal, and the support of you, our faithful viewers.